Hey, thank you for coming. This is really nice. I'm really happy that all you guys built the place. And thank you, Justin, for inviting me. What you're about to see is a miracle. How many guys here are filmmakers? How many people here are filmmakers? All right. Well, imagine your worst nightmare. You make a film, it's successful, but then the negative of the film is no longer of any use for future technology. That was the case with Maniac. We shot the movie on 16 millimeter, edited in 16, blew it up to 35, and everything that you've seen of Maniac has all was derived from the 35 negative. The prints, the video transfers, everything came from that 35 blow-up negative. That negative was made in 1980. It was now about 25 years later, and we went searching because that 35 blow-up negative was simply not suitable for future scanning. And so we made a desperate search to find the original 16 negative. And both my producer partner, Andy Garone, and myself, we came to the conclusion we must have thrown it out, that the negative no longer exists. So I had sleepless nights that Maniac is over, that the last Blu-ray release is going to be it. That's all we'll ever see of the movie. And it was a nightmare. I would have 3 o'clock in the morning sweats over it. Well, April, I get a call from Andy saying, Bill, you're never going to believe this. I was clearing out a storage room, a film storage room, and I found a box labeled On the Run. Let me explain. When we shot Maniac, we always intended to call it Maniac, but we knew that title wouldn't be good for insurance purposes, getting New York permits, asking permission to shoot in the subways, all of those things where people would be a little, skeptical of you to begin with. Calling the movie Maniac would not help. So we gave it this very vanilla title, On the Run. So we shot the movie with that title, all the slates, all the film, everything was labeled On the Run. So I go to Andy's office, and like 2 kids, 60-plus-year-old kids, it's like Christmas. We sit down, we're sitting on the floor going through this box of 16 millimeter negative. Lo and behold, it was all there. So I took it to the lab, had all the negatives scanned in 4K. But technically, we scanned it 16-bit 4K. And so what you're about to see is the result of that. And during the summer, we did hand restoration. We did over 500 hours of hand restoration to the 4K scan, and so a lot of work went into this. But Maniac now lives. In fact, I'm about to do a 35 millimeter negative output from the 4K scan. So at least in my lifetime, I'll never have that problem again. And that's it. So I'm going to be back after the movie to do Q&A. So, and guys, think about while you're watching the movie, any questions, just lay them on me. Justin?
And also be sure to stick around for the New York Ripper after our talk with Bill. There'll be a 10-minute intermission between the Q&A and the start of the second feature. Thank you.
You guys don't mind. I've been standing in the middle. Can you believe they got no chairs in the place? I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I'm going to go out to Walmart. Anyway, thank you for sitting through the movie. Anybody have any questions?
I'm going to start with something.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So,
you take the lead.
That's the best I've ever seen Maniac look. It looks incredible. So we definitely have some patrons, not anybody in this room, who are very adamant about not watching things that aren't on film in a theater, which I think is bogus, because that's a perfect example of how something can look absolutely better than any surviving 35 millimeter elements. And I want to know what your point of view is on that.
I actually am a fan of DCP. As you say, the film deteriorates. It ages, and as long as you don't clean it, so you could go too far in the restoration process that will lose its film look. I mean, this looks like film to me. This looks exactly like we shot what we shot, which was a 16 millimeter movie, warts and all. And the fact that it's not scratched up and dirty and all the rest, I have difficulty apologizing for that. It's the way it should look, and that's just my opinion. I have nothing against 35, by the way. I do enjoy seeing 35, 70 millimeter screenings. I go to them, but there were times that it's just not going to be possible. It would be stupid if I went back and re-blew up the movie again. I mean, that'd be ridiculous.
Now, with the Blu-ray that's coming out, there's some extra footage you found, right?
Well, yeah. What happened was we never actually cut the negative, and so what happened is we had to scan 100% of the negative. I'm talking about everything, outtakes, everything had to be scanned, and then we used a thing called iConform, where we used our HD master, and it was used as a reference that was ingested into the system that went through all of the footage that we scanned and assembled the movie. Basically did the digital negative cutting. And, it probably got about 95% of the movie, and some of it we had to go look for.
Do we have questions in the audience? Go ahead.
So, I've heard stories about the shotgun scene. Just how once you finished, you pretty much had to just drive away. Is there any truth to that?
Well, there's partial truth to it. What happened is, as you guys could probably imagine, the city of New York does not give permission to fire live ammunition on a movie set. And that's what we did. Dom Savini doubled Joe Spinell and firing the shotgun at his own head. So when Tom fired the shotgun, if the force of firing the shotgun into the windshield caused Tom to go flying backwards. He did like a tumble salt off the hood of the car, landing on the concrete below because we weren't prepared for him to fall off the hood. We didn't have a mattress, we didn't have a blanket, we had nothing. Tom hit the concrete head first. And all I could think about was we now had a smoking shotgun. I had a sacrificial PA, production assistant, standing by with a car with the trunk open. I grabbed the shotgun out of Tom's hands, bring it over to the trunk of the car, throw it in, close the hood, told the PA, drive to Staten Island. And then we continued shooting.
Anybody else?
Imagine, we were firing a shotgun, and right behind that car was the Belt Parkway. Think about it.
So Joe Spinell wrote the movie. Did he come to you with the idea, or
No. Joe and I met on a movie. I was a production assistant on a movie called The 7-Ups, where Joe was a thug in the movie, and he and I didn't know each other. We just started talking, and we realized we both had a love for horror movies. And so after the movie ended, Joe, between movies, because he was a very busy actor in the 70s, he would live in New York with his mother, and we would he'd call me up, let's go to 42nd Street, Tourist Trap is playing, and we'd go see these movies together. At the same time, I started making, I kind of moved up and started making adult movies. So I was getting movie experience. I was getting technical, movie making experience. And Joe and I, we said, we got to make a movie together. We got to make a horror film. And we knew we wanted him to star in it because he's a great asset. And we developed some ideas. We developed scripts that we never did. And then we had a script for Maniac, but it was more conventional. It was sort of a cop chasing a killer in New York. And Jason Miller was going to play the detective. And when Jason Miller dropped out, instead of replacing him, we just cut all the scenes with the cops. And it really made for a much better movie. Because then it allowed us to focus on Joe. Because we all know when you're watching a horror film and the police appear, you know that it's going to be boring. And you know it's time to go for popcorn. And all they're going to do is give you some exposition you really don't need. So it was a good move. Getting back to your real question about Joe writing.
Okay.
I'm sorry. What happened was we had a structure for a thriller. I had come up with all the murder set pieces. And what Joe did was create a compilation of 70s serial killers. Now, the 70s was the golden age of serial killers. You know, today, you know, you watch A&E and it's some white trash guy who was weird down the street. You know, he murders, you know, and rapes a 14-year-old girl, a neighborhood girl, buries her in his backyard. No panache. In the 70s, we had, you know, Henry Lee Lucas. We had John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy, he performed as a clown at children's parties and during the day, and at night he'd pick up young boys, you know, and kill them and bury them under his house. It was we had David Berkowitz, son of Sam. You know, he had the city paralyzed, you know, for his rampage. There was all these really cool, you know, all these really cool serial killers. And so Joe and the other one was Ted Bundy. Joe, you know, so there were aspects of this movie that Joe took from the various serial killers. The one interesting thing is all the serial killers, they had a common denominator, which was a fucked up relationship with their mothers. That was the common denominator amongst all the serial killers. They each had different MOs, but they all had, you know, bad relationships with their mothers. Or dysfunctional, I should say.
Right. So you kind of answered the question I was going to first ask, which was that seeing it, maybe this is the first time I've noticed it because the print was so good, but seeing the Cracker Jack box when, like, with that, like, that shot of all of the weapons and then there's the Cracker Jack, and then having that payoff later where he's like using the laser gun. I was going to ask where that came from, but I think you just answered that.
Uh-huh.
So the second question I have is, I noticed that the scenes that are in his apartment are shot differently than the rest of the film, and they really remind me of Mario Bava, and I was wondering if that was intentional or coincidental.
Well, I've told people, I've said in interviews that I was very heavily influenced by Italian horror. Dario Argento, Mario Bava, all of those movies from the 60s and 70s that I would go see on 42nd Street. And so I was not influenced. In fact, I really didn't like the movies that I would see like in AIP movies and things like that. There was some fun to those movies, but look-wise, they all felt like television to me. They always felt like television, whereas the European horror always had a very distinctive and very rich look to them. And I tried to do that with Maniac and my very, very limited budget.
Is it possible that the ending of Maniac may be intentional or not? You had a very interesting social problem going on within the 80s, that very early time period, where people didn't really have a strong grasp on the evolution of like mental health services or anything like that. And a lot of times people were very much satisfied with just the simplistic reactions of, and you pick up a criminal, so to speak, you lock them up. Time magazine ran a very famous article with a picture of prisoners on the cover. It said, lock them up and throw away the key. And in response to that, a lot of the Death Wish franchise movies, all of them did quite well for a long time during that time period. Is it possible at the end of Maniac, when the cops had come in and they see that the killer is, for all intents and purposes, dead under bed, and they kind of have a very passive attitude towards that? Was that maybe a social commentary at that point?
it might have been more weak acting. By two guys who were real detectives and real detective partners in real life.
Curious about C.A. Rosenberg's contributions, and did I hear correctly, C.A. Rosenberg is a woman?
Yes. Well, here's what happened. We went to her husband, Philip Rosenberg, and together with his wife, they kind of, Philip was a WGA writer, his wife wasn't, and so he couldn't put his name on the movie, so he put his wife's name, and I think she contributed some, she was there, but that was the original script, which was detectives chasing a serial killer. So, I have to say, probably very little of what they did remains. There could be some ghosts of that earlier script, but most of it got changed a lot.
Time for just a couple more. Yeah.
Do you have any interesting stories about filming in the subway in that one scene? Because
Well,
they don't even have.
I
they don't
do
even
have an
bathrooms
interesting
no more.
story. First, we did not have permission to shoot on the platform where there's a real subway car. We did have permission to shoot in the turnstile area and in the other turnstile area, but not in the platform itself. This is where Randy, who played one of the detectives at the end, this is where his gold shield came in handy. Because what we did is they assign you somebody from the subway authority to supervise your shooting. And what Randy did was take the guy out for dinner after we had shot the one platform, the one scene on the one turnstile when she enters the subway. After we shot that, we wanted to move the cameras down. We had it planned. And as soon as that happened, Randy invited the guy for dinner. And we had about maybe an hour or so to shoot her on the platform and banging on the subway car. We even put a camera inside the subway car. I mean, we crossed the line. And we put the camera inside the subway and inside the subway car. And we shot it with two cameras and got it done in an hour. I think it was more or less. And then we moved to the other platform, and that was it. And the guy came back from dinner, and he was none the wiser.
One more question. Yeah.
When Maniac came out, Siskel and Ebert had a very scathing review of it. I believe Siskel said that he walked out after 30 minutes, and filmmakers were so irresponsible to make a movie like this, and shame on them, yada yada. Did you ever have a chance to maybe confer with what they said? Did you ever meet Ebert or Siskel? And
I don't know if you know the story, but I did meet Ebert.
no?
I met Roger Ebert. When I was editing Maniac Cop 2, Roger Ebert was editing something a few doors down. And I went over and I introduced myself to Roger Ebert, and we chatted a little bit. And I, of course, told him I made Maniac and all that. And he had a sense of humor. He got it. They had given it Dog of the Week and all that. And so what happened is I had a Maniac poster hanging in my editing room. So I took it off the wall, brought it down to Roger. I said, Roger, would you mind signing my Maniac poster? and he wrote, to Bill, your film may be Dog of the Week, but you're a really nice guy, Roger Ebert.
Before we break, is there anything you want to say about New York Ripper?
Other than in a year from now, you'll be able to see the 4K restoration of it. I'm currently working on it in Rome, and it's supposed to be delivered early next year. And we're putting it out in June. It's going to come out in June on Blu-ray. And so I think you're watching a Blu-ray of the old.
Yeah, so if you want to see New York Ripper twice in 1 year, you can do that here. So we'll bring it back in June.
Another thing is, if you guys had a good time, we're having the very final screening of Maniac 4K in New York on Friday at the Roxy Cinema. That's in Manhattan, in Tribeca. Let your friends know. It's going to be the very, very, at the moment, it's the last scheduled screening of Maniac 4K. So if your friends want to see it in true 4K, that's going to be their opportunity. Also, that same night, we're going to be screening Zombie 4K, the new Zombie 4K, which is really quite spectacular. And this is the very first time it's being screened in New York. And as far as I know, there are no other screenings of it planned unless you guys.
I am going to screen it. Yes.
You have a screening?
It's not announced yet, but we will be doing it.
Okay. Well, there's a screening of Zombie 4K this Friday if you want to get an advanced look at it. It's going to be again at the Roxy. Both of them are going to be at the same theater. So maybe I'll see you. What?
Are you gonna be there?
I will. You can throw tomatoes. Thank you. And have a good night and get home safe. And hopefully I'll see you on Friday.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you.